Hi guys, I'm Woodcraft Hamster and I thought I'd do a quick update video on my cold steel Bowie. Now I've been playing around with this for a little while now. I've been using some sort of found stones to do a bit of sharpening and whatnot on it. And really I just wanted to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just point out a few things that I've noticed. I'm going to do a little bit of sort of minor testing on just some little offcuts of birch. These are sort of fairly well seasoned. And really, as I say, I just wanted to give you a few thoughts that I've sort of found over the little while. You know, my plan for this really is as part of my historical kind of kit. I appreciate it's not necessarily what people would have used, but essentially it's a big bladed chopper style knife that I'm hoping will kind of do a few different things for me out in the field, and I'm going to kind of simulate a little bit of that today. So without further ado, let me move the camera around and I'll show you what it is I'm talking about. Right then guys, so a couple of things I want to talk about. I want to give you a close-up, so hopefully you can see here around sort of the end of the blade where it meets the guard, there is a lot of rust. Now this has been kept indoors in sort of relatively dry conditions. I mean, it's not a huge problem. I'm going to put a bit of oil on there, I'll give it a bit of a rub, but you know, it's just that sort of quality control. This isn't made directly by Cold Steel. I believe, top of my head, I think it's made by Windlass. And you know, I would have expected a little bit better for the price, to be honest. You know, it's not a huge problem, it's surface rust, and as long as you keep an eye on it, it's not going to do any damage to that blade. But you know, it's just slightly annoying. So what am I going to be using this for out in the field? Combination of things really. I mean, it's got a relatively good edge on it, and I'll show you a bit more of that in a minute. But predominantly this is going to be used in lieu of things like an axe for all my chopping tasks. Now I've got a little bit of off-cut birch here, as I say, fairly well seasoned. I'm going to be battening with this in a minute. I know some of you are going to roll your eyes. If any knife was made for battening, it was this. I mean, look at the thickness of that spine. And the reason I would be happy to use this for battening is that I would carry this in place of something like an axe, which is obviously what you would normally use for splitting firewood. Now I've got another video lined up that I want to do next week, so I'm going to use this knife just to prepare these two little bits here, and you'll see what I mean about that later. But essentially what I want to try and do is lash these two together. Like so. Now obviously lashing two bits together like this is perfectly doable, but you make your life a lot easier and you make it a lot stronger if you scallop out the area you're going to lash together. Now normally I would use either an axe for that, or maybe a knife. I could sort of carve the impression out, but you know, I'd probably start off with my axe just to rough it out. So that's what I'm going to use this for. Now where's the best place? That's probably the thickest part there, and unsurprisingly with this big blade there is no issue whatsoever. Carving through very, very easily, which is, to be honest, exactly what I expected it to do. Where are we? Let's go here. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. You know, if I was doing a little bit of carving in the woods and I wanted to rough something out, that's probably a little bit better. There we go. But yeah, that would be nice and easy. I'll give you a quick close-up of this edge. Hopefully you'll be able to pick it up all right. But you know, not that I was expecting there to be any chips, but you know, there aren't, which is fine. And then quickly moving over, I'm only going to make this a short video. Battening wise, I obviously wouldn't hit the fine tip up here, so I wouldn't probably batten anything longer than say between the here and here, but you know, I have no concerns about this whatsoever. Let me just line that up a little bit better in the centre, and as predicted, no issue whatsoever. And again, you know, if I was out in the field and I was using this for battening firewood, yeah, this would be fine all day long. Now let me move some of this out of the way. what I really wanted to do was see whether this blade, and I say it's a relatively sharp blade, you know, I've got a good edge on this, how good this is going to be for feather sticking once you've done your original battening. And to be honest, it's none too shabby. I mean, it's a big blade, it's I wouldn't say difficult, but it's a little bit cumbersome to control. Now obviously, you know, it's not designed for this kind of thing. You know, something like a Mora or something with a Scandi grind is much better for this. And I tend to use just the first couple of inches at the back of this blade. That seems to be the place where I get the most control over this. You know, it's not going to win any awards for prettiness, but you know, that's just probably half a minute's worth of work to make a feather stick. Right then guys, so there you go. It was just meant to be a really short video. A few people had asked me when they first saw this, you know, what are you planning on using it for? How do you see it working in the field? And predominantly that's exactly how I see myself using it. Battening down wood, maybe using it for a few chopping tasks, certainly useful for if I'm kind of building anything like a bit of a shelter or something like that. And you know, will it take the place of my axe overall? Probably not, but when I'm going out and I'm doing a bit more of a sort of a historic style camp, you know, it'll be this. Do you know what? I think I've got it here somewhere. My other cutting tool will be this, my little folding penknife. This is what I will use for kind of my finer work, for if I'm carving something. So this will be used to rough out in the same way of an axe. This is what I'll use to kind of tidy things up and finish things off. I'll probably still take a saw with me, and maybe my flint and steel fire kit. You know, and that really, those tools are all I should need when I'm out and about. You know, that setup may not suit everybody, but to be honest, it's all down to personal preference. You know, this is not the most practical, sensible knife for bushcraft. It's certainly not the sort of thing that you would want to be out on public land with, or have, you know, someone come across you unexpectedly while you've got this in your hand. But you know, if you've got access to private land, back gardens, anything like that, you know, it's absolutely fine. I think you probably would have a bit of a hard time explaining this as a bushcraft tool. You know, to be fair, any bladed tool is a bushcraft tool if used correctly. But I think, you know, someone seeing a Mora as opposed to seeing this is probably going to have a few more questions. So that was it, guys. I hope it was useful. Comments and questions in the box below. Hit like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I hope you'll all join me next time. Cheers, guys.